Welcome to another episode of 40 Minutes in the Old Testament. 40 Minutes in the Old Testament is a 1517 podcast network podcast. You can go to 1517.org/podcast and check out all the other podcasts that are living over there. While you're over there, make sure you check out everything else that 1517 is doing. Academies, events, articles, videos, all this stuff. Check all that out. And while you're checking it out, while you're just taking in all of this material, make sure you go to the donate page and you can become a contributor to help keep all that stuff free. You can do that by giving a one-time gift, making a reoccurring gift. And if you're one of the people that do that, thank you very much for doing it. Chad, we're here in Isaiah chapter 15. This is an oracle concerning Moab. We got through the first 4 verses, and this one's a little bit weird because it seems that bad things are going to be happening to Moab, and that God is bummed out about it. So you almost have this language, like when Jesus does the 7 woes in Matthew 23, and he does this. He's just ripping up the Pharisees left. It's just brutal. It's just a savage takedown. And at the very end of that, he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how long I would have desired to gather you under my wings as a hen gathers her chicks, but you would not. And he moves from this sort of declaration of just ferocious judgment to this sort of heartbrokenness. The lament over Jerusalem isn't done in anger, but in heartbreak. And you have some of that going on here, where it's hey, this is bad news, and I'm kind of upset about it.
Yeah, well, I think it puts into perspective that God's judgment is not spoken out of some sort of vindictiveness, that he's just real angry and wants to let them know, he's got the big stick, he's about to bash their brains in, just because, that's just what God does. Now, everything that he's speaking here is spoken out of concern for truth and justice, but also genuine love, that what he really wants is for them to repent, for them to turn to him, for them to be, as he'll say in, the next chapter or something like that. He wants them to be brought under the care of the promises he's given to the Davidic dynasty. So when he, as we'll see in a second, when his heart cries out, this is, talk about a clear window into the heart of God, a heart that laments while at the same time pronouncing a judgment. I think on the human level, we've all experienced this. We have to tell someone something that is a really hard thing to say, somebody we actually care about, and it truly breaks our heart to say that to them. We are lamenting, but at the same time, it has to be said, because if we don't do it, then not doing it would not be a sign of love. So I just take that human experience we all have and translate it into what God has to do as well.
Yeah. So,
all right. So, just kind of recap for those who maybe it's been a few days since you heard the first part of this. We got a lot of places: Ar, Kir, Dibon, Nebo, Heshbon. And don't worry about all of those. These are various places that are in Moab. Reminder that Moab is on the eastern side of the Dead Sea. So that's the Transjordan area that we're talking about. So after he's spoken these first 4 verses, he goes on to say, verse 5, my heart cries out for Moab. Her fugitives flee to Zoar, to Eglath Shalishiyah, for at the ascent of Luhith they go up weeping. On the road to Horonaim they raise a cry of destruction. The waters of Nimrim are desolation. The grass is withered. The vegetation fails. The greenery is no more. So stop there for a second. So this is more place names. Some of these we've heard of, like Zoar. We've heard about that all the way back in Genesis. You hear about the 5 cities on the plain. So Zoar is mentioned there, and Eglath Shalishiyah is just one that we haven't heard about. It's going to be mentioned elsewhere in Scripture, but means something like 3-year-old heifer or something like that. But all these are just place names that would have been known at the time, certainly would have been known to the Moabites, probably got known to all the Israelites as well, which he is concretizing exactly what's going to happen. So that place, well, that ascent of Luhith, they're going to be weeping there. And you know that place called Horonaim. Well, they're going to be on that road and raising a cry of destruction. I mean, these are weird sounding names to us, but if you and I were talking about towns in Arkansas or towns in Texas and just started listing them off, you'd be like, oh yeah, of course I know. I don't need a map. I know exactly where those are. Same thing happening here. And I mean, the overall tenor of this entire section is basically where there once was life, there's death. Where there's once was greenery, now there's desolation. It's because of everything that's about to befall them. Then he goes on in 7 to say, therefore, the abundance they have gained and what they have laid up, they carry away over the brook of the willows. This is kind of the image of fugitives, refugees, which of course are those who suffer the most during war. They've gathered up everything. They put everything they can carry. Just imagine this. Imagine somebody comes running to your house, knocks on the door, and says, hey, you got just a few minutes to get out of here before the enemy shows up, and they're going to either kill you or take you into captivity or rape your wives. They're going to burn your house down. So grab what you can and get out. Well, that's kind of the image here. You grab what you can, and then you take off. Why? For a cry has gone up around the land of Moab. Her wailing reaches to Eglaim. Her wailing reaches to Beer Elim. For the waters of Dibon are full of blood. For I will bring upon Dibon even more, a lion, for those of Moab who escape, for the remnant of the land. So I don't know. There's really much else that I have to say about this. You get the general message that everywhere they look, there is violence, there's threat, there's cries that they're going to go up. And all of this, of course, is because of the coming Assyrian invasion, which is going to decimate not just Moab, of course, but this entire region of Israel and then around Israel.
Yeah, it sounds pretty horrific. And this sort of, you get this language of like, you should get all your stuff and escape, even though there's nowhere to escape to. Right, this is like you're not really gonna. It's not gonna really result in your salvation or anything. And and it is weird because it is Moab. Like this is something that you might like expect to hear about. I don't know, like Jerusalem or some other place. And I don't know if this is exactly right, but if you think about what is God ultimately talking about? Well, so far through this, that he's going to use these other powers. He's going to kind of take his hand off, let them do the evil thing that's in their heart, which is invade Israel, which, they don't really care that much about Israel. Israel's not any bigger deal than anything else to them, but it's one of the things that is in their way, right? So they might as well gobble that up. And God's going to let him do it because the people have rejected him. The people have spurned him. So he is no longer going to hold back the tide of these foreign powers. And it could be that sort of Moab or like surrounding areas of Israel are sort of beneficiaries of God protecting Israel. So when God, is holding back the tide, well, maybe there's this place he doesn't want to get to, but kind of everything around there benefits from this as well, right? Well, it's not necessarily because of the sin of Moab, who are no doubt sinners and stuff, but it's the sin of his people, their idolatry, that's going to make him remove his hand, and Moab is going to be swept up in this too. And God feels that is unfortunate, right? So hey, there's almost again, I don't want to say that Moab is some innocent place, but there is a version of collateral damage that seems like that may happen here.
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of both sides, right? Israel can, because of their sin, bring collateral damage to their neighbors. And at the same time, they can also bring, maybe collateral blessing isn't the best word, but that's the goal. You want to, like God says to Abraham, he says it to Jacob as well, that in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. And of course, included in that would be the Moabites and the Edomites and other surrounding nations. So that's the goal, Israel to be a blessing to these nations. And yet what's happening is they're actually, because of their rebellion, they're bringing the enemy onto the soil of their neighbors as well.
Yeah.
One little detail I'll mention here that's kind of fun. So at the very end of that, he says, a lion for those of Moab who escape, for the remnant of the land. So meaning that, as if it's not bad enough, when you're running away, you got to worry about lions too. It's like, oh, great.
Well, this is kind of what I meant, like where it's like,
what else is going to go wrong?
Bad things are happening. Grab all your stuff and get out of your house. And you're like, okay.
Oh, yeah, by the way.
There's going to be lions out there, by the way.
Yeah. And just so you know, yeah. So what's what's interesting is that in a couple of places, there's like 1 Chronicles 11:22. There's mention of the Ariels of Moab. That's Ariels, and that means the lions of Moab. But it's used as like it's like a military nickname for their elite warriors. So yeah, call the lions of Moab, meaning the special forces, we might say. So the irony here is that, you've got special forces. You have the lion-like soldiers in Moab, and yet in this case, those refugees of Moab who are fleeing, they have to worry about real lions because they're lion-like, they're Ariels who are their warriors. Well, either they are no more, or as I think we heard last time, they're trembling. Or maybe that was another country. But either way, they're not there to help the people because they're busy being defeated or fighting the Assyrians. All right, so we're entering into a new chapter, but it's not much of a change in tone. This is still a continuation of the oracle concerning Moab. We're just shifting into chapter 16. So here we read, beginning with verse 1, send the lamb to the ruler of the land, from Selah. That could be Petra, by the way. I think we're all familiar with Petra, that rock fortress that's featured in Indiana Jones.
That rock band that was featured heavily in the late 80s.
That was the first Christian rock band I ever listened to. It was Petra. Yeah.
Petra Means Rock. That was the name. I think that was the name of the first Petra album was just Petra Means Rock.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
That's too great. Yeah. Yeah, when I was I in high school still? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was like a senior in high school when I was introduced to Petra by a friend of mine. So I rocked to several Petra albums back in the day.
It's an appropriately named album, and no lies detected in Petra Means Rock.
Yes, this is true.
It's true.
Passes the fact check there. So that could be what this Selah, S-E-L-A, is referring to, because it does mean rock, and it's kind of in that general vicinity of where the ancient city of Petra is located. But anyway, send the lamb to the ruler of the land from Selah by way of the desert to the mount of the daughter of Zion. All right. So what seems to be happening here is that the Moabites are going to take this tribute, which is a lamb, and we know from some other context, in particular from 2 Kings 3, that the Moabite tribute was lambs. All right, so maybe there's a lot of shepherding going on in the area of Moab. So they're going to get this lamb, probably a representative tribute, a promise of more to come. So grab a lamb and send this tribute from Selah by way of the desert. Where? Well, to the people of Jerusalem, to the mount of the daughter of Zion. So basically, the Moabites are going to be looking to Jerusalem, to Judah, for protection, saying, "Hey, we got a lamb here. We can bring a lot more if you'll take us in." And then it goes on in verse 2 to say, like fleeing birds, like a scattered nest, so are the daughters of Moab at the fords of the Arnon. The fords of the Arnon, I got interested in this. I think this was a week or two ago. I went on Google Earth just to check out the fords of the Arnon, which is a pretty cool thing to do, because the fords of the Arnon is where the Arnon flows into the Dead Sea. And if you get on Google Earth and you're like following it along, man, the landscape just plummets there. So the Arnon River Canyon is the deepest gorge in modern Jordan, and enters the Dead Sea at like 1,350 feet below sea level. And if you're like following along, you can see how people, if they're fleeing, they make it they're doing okay. They're up and down. Then they get to this Arnon, the ford to the Arnon. It's like, how in the world are you going to get down there? And if you do get down there, how in the world are you going to get out?
Yeah.
So it's like one of these, not just me, I hear this before and I think, the ford to the Arnon. Well, imagine like, okay, you're going along, you're running away, and you see this massive cliff drop. You got to get across that. You got to cross the river, and you got to go way back up in order to get away from the enemy. And you're among the daughters of Moab when this is going on. So that's the image that's used here.
Isn't it kind of interesting that these Moabites, they need to escape some lions, so they need to bring a lamb to Zion?
Yes, it is. That's some pretty deep irony that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that you have a chapter right there, but like one chapter ends with lions, and the next chapter starts with bring that lamb to Zion. If you're gonna have anything good happen.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, what seems to be going on here, and this is a bit of speculation because this is all kind of tied here, but they're sending a tribute. Here's a description of what's happening to them. They're like birds who are scattered. And then verse 3, which says, give counsel, grant justice, make your shade like night. At the height of noon, shelter the outcast. Do not reveal the fugitive. This seems to be like the speech that these envoys are going to be given at Jerusalem. Like, hey, we need some counsel. We got to have justice. Give us some shade because we're living at the height of noon. The heat of the Assyrians is pressing down upon us, and so shelter us and don't reveal that we're hiding among you, the fugitives. So that's verse 3. Verse 4 has the tone of Isaiah, as it were, giving counsel to the leaders of Jerusalem, saying, okay, when this happens, here's what I think you should do. Let the outcast of Moab sojourn among you. Be a shelter to them from the destroyer. When the oppressor is no more, and destruction has ceased, and he who tramples underfoot has vanished from the land. So once the Assyrian threat is over, what's going to happen? Verse 5 continues this. Well, then a throne will be established in steadfast love, and on it will sit in faithfulness in the tent of David, one who judges and seeks justice and is swift to do righteousness. I love how Isaiah can go from describing what appears to be an imminent threat to the Moabites. Listen, the Assyrians are coming. They're going to decimate your land. Your people are going to run away. They got to worry about lions. Their women are like fleeing birds. They're going to come. They're going to seek refuge among the people of Jerusalem. All this is like right on the horizon. And then he'll say, you know what? Bring him in, because guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a Davidic throne established in faithfulness. And the one who sits on that throne is going to come from the line of David. And what's he going to be characterized by? Justice and righteousness and steadfast love. So he jumps right to the coming of the Messiah, saying, hey, welcome the Moabites, right? Bring them in. The more, the merrier. The promise of the Messiah isn't just for the people of Israel, of course. It's for the Moabites and the Edomites and the Samaritans and everybody else as well. So kind of a cool switch that he does there in verse 5.
Yeah, and one of the weird things about this is like what it goes to next, because like it seems like, all right, good. Like so the Moabites are going to flee, and then it seems like Isaiah's like, hey, go ahead and take them in. Like that'd be the right thing to do. And you get this nice promise about like a throne being established. Seems like things are good, and you're like, all right, so maybe this works out well for everyone. And in verse 6, he's like, yeah, you know about the pride of these Moabites. And you're like, wait, what? What is that? What is that about?
Yeah, it's almost like Isaiah says, here's what you should do, and here's why you should do it. But we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because we all know these Moabites, right? What are they characterized by? Well, that's what verse 6 describes. We've all heard of what? The pride of Moab. How proud he is, of his arrogance, his pride, his insolence. His idle boasting, he is not, in his idle boasting, he is not right. So it's like Isaiah he's like got his Jerusalem thesaurus open in front of him. And he looks up, okay, here's pride. What else can I say? What are some synonyms of pride? And so I had to have a little fun here with this in the Hebrew, because so all four adjectives that are translated there of pride, proud, arrogance, pride, they all begin with the same letter in Hebrew, which is the equivalent of our G, and they all have the same root, which means to be high. So it'd be something like this. If I was in the Chadberg translation, trying to capture the Hebrew here, it'd be something like this. We have heard of the haughtiness of Moab, his hauteur, of his hubris and high-handedness. That's my attempt to capture this. So you got 4 H's, just like 4 G's in Hebrew. But I mean, the message is pretty clear. This Moab, well, they got a big problem, and it all has to do with how big their head has become. So what's going to happen? Well, verse 7 says, therefore let Moab wail for Moab. Let everyone wail, mourn, utterly stricken, for the raisin cakes of Kir Hareseth. Those raisin cakes.
Yeah, that's a good dessert back then. The raisin cake
seems to be a delicacy from what I was able to read. So the delicacies, we might say, of Kir Hareseth.
Yeah, so is the way to read this that he says, "Hey, take these Moabites in," but their land's not going to really be spared. So you have this sort of Moab wails for Moab. That all whatever it is that they're proud of over there, like that's all going to be removed and laid to waste. But that doesn't stop you from taking in the sojourner.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if anyone shows up, we'll bring them in for sure. Don't turn them away. Bring in the Moabites and let them basically sit under the promises that God has given to David. But do know at the same time that Moab is proud of some of the things we're going to hear about in just a second. You know, their fertile land where they have vineyards and no doubt their flocks and whatever possessions that they have. I mean, I suppose every nation has its own pride. I mean, of course, except America, because you never hear about pride. Associated with America at all, right? The most humble nation on earth.
We don't think we're the best.
No. I mean, perish the thought that America thinks it's the best. But I mean, speaking as American, of course, we all know about national pride. And I doubt, I mean, I could be wrong here, but I doubt there's a nation in the world that isn't proud of its nation for something, you know, legitimately or illegitimately. And Moab was no different. Israel was no different. Judah was no different. Egypt was no different. It's been a constant issue throughout the ages. So what's going to happen? Well, he's going to pick it up here with verse 8 to describe more of the destruction that's going to come. And this is agriculturally centered. Heard a lot about the people, what they're suffering. So he's going to focus here on what this destruction is going to look like in terms of some of the agriculture. For the fields of Heshbon languish, the vine of Sivma, so it's going to languish too. The lords of the nations have struck down its branches. So evidently this was some sort of fertile country where you had a lot of vineyards. So these branches, they reached to Jazer and strayed to the desert. Its shoots spread abroad and passed over the sea. So some hyperbole going on there, just talking about how big and how fruitful these vineyards are. Well, they're going to be cut down, can be destroyed. Then verse 9 picks up with where we started off with divine lamentation. Because God says in verse 9, therefore I, this is God speaking, this is not Isaiah speaking, but God speaking, therefore I weep with the weeping of Jazer, for the vine of Sibmah. I drench you with my tears, O Heshbon and Elealeh, for over your summer fruit and your harvest the shout has ceased, and joy and gladness are taken away from the fruitful field. And in the vineyards no songs are sung, no cheers are raised, no treader treads out wine in the presses. I put an end to the shouting. Therefore again, this is God still speaking, therefore my inner parts moan like a lyre from Moab, and my inmost self for Kir Hareseth. So once more we have God's response to this. He's not dancing around joyful, gleeful over the destruction of the Moabites. Quite the opposite. I don't know how we would express this in English, but when it says my inner parts moan like a lyre, it's like in Hebrew, it's something like my intestines are sighing for Moab like a harp. The only thing I could think of was like we talk about, maybe not anymore, but like, plucking someone's heartstrings. But that's a positive image. I don't know what the negative image would be in English, but that's the idea that in the innermost being of God, you have this mournful music arising from the core of his being. He's moaning with this lyre-like lamentation for Moab, his inmost self for Kir Hareseth, because of the destruction coming.
Yeah, in the Old Testament, like we think that, and you have some stuff like love the Lord your God with all your heart, and you're like, okay, and that doesn't sound weird to us at all because that's the kind of language we use. Like, where you're like, the heart is the seat of the emotions for us. It's not really that way in the Old Testament, even though you have references like that. It's in the Old Testament, it's like the bowels.
Yeah,
which
yes, it is.
Is a little bit different. Like that doesn't seem as nice. I mean, but that's just because we've elevated the heart. But I mean, the heart is just a big blood pumping muscle too, and so it's all the same. But so when you're just like when you're really moved, this is talking about your guts, man, and your bowels.
Yeah,
so,
or your kidneys. Your kidneys is another image they use for that. Yeah,
yeah, it's something like in you, like in that stomach region. It's more stomach than chest, it seems, than in the Old Testament. But one of the things that when I read stuff like this, where God's like so upset and about this, and he's talking about, oh man, like there was these vineyards and they were so awesome, and there was used to have all these like harvest parties, and there was like all this rejoicing when it came time to do all this stuff, and you would make all this wine and you'd be stomping it out in the wine press, and like everyone would be shouting and stuff. What you see by God being so upset about all that stuff stopping is how much joy God takes in those things. And so God really likes his creation, and so God thinks he made a pretty good thing over there in Moab. He thinks that those vineyards are pretty impressive. They're pretty great, and he created that land, and he's the one that made the soil good for growing wine or for growing vineyards, and that God like enjoys when people rejoice over his creation. When he sees people, God likes a party, apparently. Like, so when he sees the people rejoicing over the harvest, he also takes joy in that, and therefore is upset and brokenhearted when those things come to an end. That will be no more, because what it tells you is that those things are objectively good.
Yeah, yeah. Don't you love how the image of joy often in scriptures is a party?
Yeah,
it's like a feast. Yeah, there is no image of God as some sort of puritanical deity who's all concerned about being somber and serious all the time. There's a whole lot of partying and feasting and having fun and being joyful going on in the scriptures where God is concerned.
It's much more. You get much more a picture of God. I don't know, like gathering up the angels and be like, check it out, like they're celebrating over the harvest. Isn't that wonderful? Like look at how beautiful this is. Like that's more the image you get.
Yeah. It turns out God actually likes his creation. I mean, he made it, right? He made it to be this way, and so he rejoices over our rejoicing also. Yeah,
and doesn't is not happy about seeing it all like trampled and burnt down. And you think about what a land looks like post invasion, and it's certainly not the way that God designed it. Right? It's all destruction and that's God views that as an evil.
Yeah. All right, so we're almost done here. A couple more verses. Finish this out. Verse 12. And when Moab presents himself, when he wearies himself on the high place, when he comes to his sanctuary to pray, he will not prevail. This is the word that the Lord spoke concerning Moab in the past. But now the Lord has spoken, saying, in 3 years, like the years of a hired worker, the glory of Moab will be brought into contempt, in spite of all his great multitude, and those who remain will be very few and feeble. So verse 12 is accenting the fact that Moab can go up to their own little worship sites, their high places. They can pray to their God. But you know what's going to happen? Nothing. They're not going to prevail. Nothing's going to come of this. They're going to the wrong place. I mean, Isaiah says where they should go to Jerusalem. That's where they should pray. In fact, when Solomon dedicated the temple, he prayed that God would hear the prayers of the Gentiles, the non-Israelites who came to the temple to pray. That's where they belong. And then he adds this conclusion, these last couple verses, about kind of a second prophecy, maybe something that's going to be more in the imminent future. He says in 3 years, like the years of a hired worker. That seems to mean like, okay, so if you're a hired hand and you're getting paid by the clock, you know what you're going to watch? The clock.
I've done that. This is not hypothetical for me. Like I tell you
this
what,
is very
man,
true.
I've had many jobs that are by the hour, like a clock in, clock out type of thing, and yeah, man, it's and that's all great. But anyone who's ever done that or is still doing that knows that there are some days where you're like, is that clock broken? Like you just like staring at it, like that clock is not moving at all.
I checked that clock like 3 hours ago and it's only moved 15 minutes.
Yes, yeah, that kind of thing. But that's exactly right. And of course, the more you watch that clock, the slower it goes, right?
Mm-hmm. So when it says in 3 years, like the years of a hired worker, that means in exactly 3 years. That's what that idiom is talking about. So in exactly 3 years, or as the Hebrew would put it, in 3 years, like the years of a hired worker, the glory of Moab is going to be brought into contempt. And who's going to be left? Well, not many. Here's our remnant theme once more. And even the remnant is going to be very few and feeble. So that's the end of the Moabite oracle. I mean, there's hope there, but there's hope only. Well, there's always only hope, and that's with the promises of the Lord. Otherwise, there is nothing but hopelessness.
Yeah. It is so weird too with all of this up to this point. All this language like, hey, get ready for it, people of God, because it's coming and it's gonna be horrible. Also, I'm gonna need you to be the one source of deliverance for these other people. And so both of these things are sort of true at the same time, where it's like, oh, you're about to get judged, but you're still the only place with the promise.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to translate this into relatively modern history, I would think of how many nations over the course of the 20th century, where you had through the wars, terrible century because of so many different wars, all the destruction, desolation, hopelessness, despair. And yet, even in these places, what still remained? Well, churches, right? The churches that continue to preach the gospel, the churches which continue to give out hope to people. I mean, it's no different today as well. You can have a place which is war-torn and devastated and on the brink of just complete destruction, and yet you'll still have Christians gathering around, praying, holding out hope for the people that are around them. Well, that's basically Israel's calling in the ancient world, was to do that as well for the Moabites who were around them. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. We can jump into chapter 17. This is, if you just read the opening sentence, it can be a little bit misleading because it says an oracle concerning Damascus. Well, it is concerning Damascus, but it's also concerning the northern kingdom of Israel. And I think there's a bit of a jibe that's going on here where Isaiah is preaching an oracle concerning Damascus, but at the same time he's preaching it against the northern kingdom because what have they done? Well, they have allied themselves with Damascus, which is, another name for its capital of Aram or Syria. So he's couching this whole oracle under Damascus, the capital of Aram or Syria, but the northern kingdom has allied itself with these Gentiles. And so the fate that befalls them is also going to fall the northern kingdom. So their destiny is now subsumed under the destiny of Damascus or Syria, because rather than turning to the Lord, they've chosen to turn to their neighbors. And in turning to their neighbors, they have distanced themselves from God and thus moved outside of his realm of protection. So what happens to Damascus is also going to happen to Israel. So it starts out, I'll read the first 3 verses. An oracle concerning Damascus. Behold, Damascus will cease to be a city. It's going to become a heap of ruins. The cities of Aurora are deserted. They're going to be for flocks, which will lie down, and none will make them afraid. Pretty common theme there of a city being completely wiped out, deserted, and what has becomes nothing more than a big sheep pen, more or less. The fortresses will disappear from, and here we get it, Ephraim. Of course, that is another name for the northern kingdom. So we're talking about Damascus, but we're also talking about Ephraim or Israel. The fortress will disappear from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria will be like the glory of the children of Israel, declares the Lord of hosts. There's a lot of debate as to what this means when it says, like the glory of the children of Israel. I don't know, I tend to think that this is being used ironically, like air quotes around glory. Yeah, the glory of the Israelites, which is not glorious because they're being wiped out. That same glory is going to be shared by the remnant of Syria. That's how I take that. I mean, you could spin it positively in the sense that there's going to be a remnant left, and that remnant is going to be like the remnant glory of the Israelites. Only a few, a small remnant's going to be there, but it will at least still have the glory of the promise connected with it. I mean, I guess you could take that either way, but I tend to think this is kind of being used in that backwards sort of way, an inglorious glory, if you will.
Oh, yeah, well, this is always the glory of Israel is never that glorious, the way that we think of glorious, right? I mean, maybe in Solomon's heyday it was like something, but after that, like when the real glory of Israel shows up, it's like homeless and wandering around, preaching with some like misfit people.
Yeah.
So
we've seen his glory. Yeah. Well, you have, but it's not what you would think of when you see the glory of God, not the ministry of Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. It does seem as though all of these places that, because again, you're zoomed in on Israel here, but there's all this stuff like surrounding it. So here, like the north, and they've aligned themselves with this, so they got to get wiped out too. Now, there's I hadn't thought about it honestly until we were recording this, but God sort of protecting Israel is a real benefit to the surrounding area, and you are getting the real impression that this is a real bummer. That like Israel's idolatry is really costing the surrounding area.
Yeah, yeah. The repercussions are broad. Even though the surrounding countries might not realize the reason this is happening, they are certainly feeling the brunt of the Assyrian onslaught. And Damascus is one of those countries. They they wanted to defend themselves against the Assyrians, and they saw the northern kingdom, and the northern kingdom was ready and willing. So they said, "Hey, join our band, and maybe together we can withstand these superior powers." But that didn't work. In fact, I just was checking out this morning. So this is an excerpt from Tiglath-Pileser's inscriptions. This is how he describes what he did to Damascus. I overran the land of Damascus, the entire land. I captured their cities and plundered them. I carried off the people of the land, together with their possessions, to Assyria. I slew their king. I set up governors over them. I took 16 districts of Damascus along with their cities and annexed them to the land of Assyria. Their people were deported. So there you have it. That's what befell them from the Assyrians. So they put their trust in the wrong place. Instead of putting their trust in The promises, sure, and certain promises to David, they put their trust in an alliance, and that alliance did not bring them what they wanted. And we got more. We made it through the first 3 verses. We're going to hear more about what's coming up in verse 4 and following. But I guess we got to wait till next time. We'll see you.